tonight with occasional rain and a thunderstorm, low 49. Cloudy, windy for tomorrow, high 56. Monday night, clear skies, low 41. Tuesday, cloudy, milder, high 63. And on Wednesday, sunshine and clouds with a high 71. I'm Andy Robb on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This is Albert Mohler for townhall.com. This Sunday is Easter, a great celebration day for Christians. The church bears a mandate to proclaim the truth that God raised Jesus Christ from the dead. The resurrected Lord gave the church a sacred commission to take the gospel, the message of Christ's victory over sin and death, throughout the world. So, as the church gathers to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ, Christians look back in thankfulness to that empty tomb and forward to the fulfillment of Christ's purposes in us. The resurrection of Jesus Christ is the promise of our resurrection from the dead and of Christ's total victory over sin and death. The resurrection of Jesus Christ is at the very center of the Christian gospel. The empty tomb is full of power. Happy Easter to all. May the joy of the resurrection be yours. I'm Albert Mohler.
For daily commentary, news, interviews, and the Town Hall Review Weekend program, go to townhallreview.com. That's townhallreview.com.
It's important to have a heating and cooling company you can depend on. That company is the original Arlington Heights Heating and Cooling. They aren't one of those massive companies with newer techs and subcontractors. Oh no, Arlington Heights Heating and Cooling send only their own highly skilled techs. From service to installation and everything in between, the work quality and customer service is the best. For 40 years, the original Arlington Heights Heating and Cooling has kept homeowners and business customers comfy and warm in the winter and nice and cool in the warmer months. Don't call the big guys, call the best. Call Carrie at 847-545-1700 or visit arlingtonheightsheatingandcooling.net. That's Carrie at 847-545-1700 or online at arlingtonheightsheatingandcooling.net. The original Arlington Heights Heating and Cooling, not the biggest, just the best.
Attention American homeowners, you're under attack. Your home and equity could be vulnerable to cyber thieves. There's only one company that completely stops them, and that company is Equity Protect. Equity Protect prevents any attempts to steal your home, equity, and ownership 24/7. Get your free risk report today by texting the word HOME to 94878. That's right, text the word HOME to 94878 to get your free risk report. Keep your equity and legacy safe with Equity Protect.
The following is a pre-recorded program. If we want to preserve our constitutional republic, we need an informed and educated citizenry. And that's what this show is all about. Find out what's really happening. It's time to stop the lies and learn the truth. This is The Real Story with your host, Jeannie Ives.
Happy Easter. Coming up, you're going to hear from Brian Burch. He talks about his appointment to represent the United States at the Vatican. You'll also hear from Pastor Corey Brooks. He discusses progress on his new community center and the missionary trips to Africa he just recently did with young people from his congregation. We will also have the Edgar County Watchdogs. They're going to put up with my producer, George, this week as I am traveling. Right now, though, just to kick things off, we have my conversation with Paul Kengor about the role that faith played in the life and governance of Ronald Reagan. I hope you enjoy the show. I am traveling, but a lot of this is fresh content, and all of it's good.
This week, Jewish families and friends have been celebrating Passover, a tradition rich in symbolism and meaning. Its observance reminds all of us that the struggle for freedom and the battle against oppression, waged by Jews since ancient times, is one shared by people everywhere. And Christians have been commemorating the last momentous days leading to the crucifixion of Jesus 1950 years ago. Tomorrow, as morning spreads around the planet, we'll celebrate the triumph of life over death, the resurrection of Jesus. Both observances tell of sacrifice and pain, but also of hope and triumph. As we look around us today, we still find human pain and suffering, but we also see it answered with individual courage and spirit strengthened by faith. For example, the brave Polish people, despite the oppression of a godless tyranny, still cling to their faith and their belief in freedom.
The clip that you just heard was Ronald Reagan on the advent of Passover and Easter on April 2nd of 1983. He talked about the brave Polish people, despite the oppression of godless tyranny, still cling to their faith and their belief in freedom. And certainly Ronald Reagan clung to his faith and his belief in freedom. And so here today to talk more about Ronald Reagan and his legacy, and specifically his relationship with Pope John Paul II, which was instrumental in ending the Cold War, is none other than Paul Kengor. He is an expert on this topic. He wrote God and Ronald Reagan and Their Spiritual Life. He is the Senior Director and Chief Academic Fellow for the Institute for Faith and Freedom and the Professor of Political Science. Professor Kengor, thank you so much for joining me on this Easter weekend.
Well, thank you very much, Jeannie. And of all those titles, I am most proud of father of 8 children, and that's probably the most difficult of all of them too. A lot more difficult than writing books, I'll tell you that.
Yes, but you're a prolific writer, and I do want to talk more about Ronald Reagan and his faith. I mean, how important was it to Ronald Reagan, though, to surround himself with faithful people, particularly Bill Clark, a former seminarian, as you noted in your book, a pope and a president?
Yeah, you know, and I think your intro pointing out Reagan's Easter message, 1983, and his receptiveness, of course, to the Jewish people, which, of course, naturally you would be as a Christian, right? My late great friend Herb Meyer, who was Jewish and who worked for Bill Casey of the CIA, used to call me his older brother in the faith, right, as a Christian. And Ronald Reagan was just surrounded by people of different, Judeo-Christian, faith denominations. He had a lot of really close Catholic advisors. He had a lot of close Jewish advisors. He was very close to Pope John Paul II. His closest advisor altogether, like you said, was William P. Clark, Bill Clark, also known simply as Judge Clark. And I was Clark's biographer, so I came to know Clark very, very well. He was like a grandfather to me. And so Clark was a devout Catholic, even built a church on his ranch property in Paso Robles, California. Clark died in August of 2013. But Reagan, who was he was raised in the Disciples of Christ denomination out of northwestern Illinois. He lived in a whole bunch of different towns in northwestern Illinois. In fact, he was in Chicago for a time, Tampico, Illinois, Galesburg, Monmouth, Eureka, when he went to Eureka College. But he spent most of his time in his youth in Dixon, Illinois. And it was there in Dixon that he was raised in the Disciples of Christ denomination. Later in life, he became Presbyterian when he went to Hollywood, joined Bel Air Presbyterian Church. But he was raised under the roof of a Catholic father, Jack Reagan, and a non-Catholic Protestant mother, Nell Reagan, who was really saved. I mean, to use that term really applies in her case at a Reverend Billy Sunday gathering in the early 1900s in northwestern Illinois. But so he grew up, really learned kind of ecumenism, a very ecumenical nature that he had in his household. His brother Neil he had one sibling, Neil, and he and Neil were baptized together in the Rock River right off of the First Christian Church in South Hennepin Avenue, July 1922. And Neil eventually became Catholic, a very, very devout Catholic, daily communicant, used to go to daily mass. And Ronald Reagan, of course, remained Protestant his entire life. But so that's kind of a long answer to your question. But he had these wonderful relationships with people of other faiths.
So it is interesting, though. I don't think most people know that the United States did not have formal diplomatic relations with the Vatican prior to Reagan. So I think that's especially interesting considering all the hysteria when we elected Kennedy as the first Catholic, and the people thought, well, he's going to install a mini papacy and have allegiance to the Pope instead of the country in our Constitution. So I found that was interesting, too. I imagine Bill Clark had something to do with making this a formal diplomatic relation that continues to the day.
Yeah, that was a big deal. So that happened in 1984, and previous presidents had considered it. By the way, Harry Truman wanted to do it. And Harry Truman greatly admired Pope Pius XII, who was Pope from 1939 to 1958. And interesting connection here, Jeannie. Ronald Reagan had a favorite quote from Pius XII that he recited in at least a half a dozen speeches during his presidency. And the quote was, into the arms of America, a troubled world runs, right? Into the arms of America. And Reagan loved that. Reagan loved that Pius XII was this anti-communist, pro-America, pro-Western Pope, as of course Pope John Paul II was as well. But Reagan in 1984 became indeed the first president to recognize the Vatican, the Holy See, as it's called, and his first ambassador was a man named William Wilson, and he was followed by Frank Shakespeare. And Frank Shakespeare, by the way, just died a couple of years ago. And I had some fascinating interviews that I did with him that I talk about in my book on Reagan and John Paul II, a Pope and a President. He had some really fascinating insights into being the only person there with Reagan and John Paul II in June 1987. I mean, how would you like to see a fly on that wall, right?
Oh, my goodness.
So yeah, he recognized the Vatican in 1984. But backing up a little bit, Reagan was sitting in his ranch home in California with Richard V. Allen, Dick Allen, who became Reagan's first national security advisor, even before Bill Clark. And they were watching footage in June 1979 of Pope John Paul II's first return to his native Poland as Pope. And they saw these massive crowds, 5 million people. And Allen, I interviewed Allen about this, and he told me, he said, I looked over at Reagan, and we were watching on TV, and Reagan had tears in his eyes. And he said, Dick, that's it. The Pope is the key. The Pope is the key. The Pope is the key. So we've got to reach out to this new Polish Pope in the Vatican, and we've got to make them an ally. And so, of course, that meant Reagan had to get elected first, but he won in November 1980, won 44 out of 50 states, inaugurated January 1981, and then they immediately began reaching out to the Vatican to try to make them an ally, because Reagan also told Dick Allen in a separate conversation before his presidency, he said, Dick, my policy toward the Soviet Union is very simple. It's this: we win and they lose. What do you think about that? And Allen was inspired by that, kind of blown away by it, but he also thought, well, okay, how are you going to do that? And for Reagan, when the conclave, the College of Cardinals in the Sistine Chapel in October 1978, picked the first non-Italian pope in 455 years, the first Slavic pope ever, and plucked them out of the communist bloc, out of Poland, the most religious country in all of Eastern Europe. Reagan said, that's how we can win and they can lose. We got to reach out to this new pope in the Vatican and make them an ally. And so recognizing the Holy See for Reagan in 1984 was part of that strategy with John Paul II.
All right, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to be right back with Professor Ken Gore and more about John Paul II and Ronald Reagan's relationship and how they were able to defeat communism.
For nearly a decade, AM 560 has marked the start of summer with a night of cigar smoking and great conversation. And this year, we've expanded Cigar Night to 2 nights. Wednesday, May 21st at Burch Farm in Pingree Grove, and Thursday, May 22nd at Gaelic Park in Oak Forest. Featuring the great Larry Elder, along with AM 560's Dan Proft and Sean Thompson. Tickets are on sale now at 560theanswer.com/cigar. That's 560theanswer.com/cigar. Sponsored by Liberty Cigar Company.
Attention, hut! Listen up and listen up good. If you're tired of run-of-the-mill gifts, then get on over to aviatorfuel.com. You'll find unique military-style cocktail books and barware to go with it. At aviatorfuel.com, we've got the perfect gift for any soldier, sailor, Marine, or just red-blooded American. You'll especially love our military cocktail checklists, modeled off the real Army, Navy, and Marine pilot checklists that military aviators have used for decades. These award-winning books are authentic replicas, but instead of a procedure on how to handle an engine fire, you'll find the procedure for how to make a mojito, written with military jargon throughout. So pick up a cocktail checklist from aviatorfuel.com. Invite some old friends to share war stories over cocktails. Your perfect libation is inside the cocktail checklist. And don't forget matching military-themed barware. Go to aviatorfuel.com and get ready to raise a glass to the brave men and women who serve our country. That's aviatorfuel.com.
You heard me talk about Relief Factor and how so many people enjoy a better, more pain-free life because of it. If you're dealing with everyday pain, it makes sense you'd want to try it first. Well, Relief Factor makes that pretty pain-free too with their 3-week quick start kit for only $19.95. An easy, affordable way to see how it could literally change your life, like it has mine. Relief Factor is a daily supplement that fights pain naturally. Developed by doctors, Relief Factor doesn't just mask pain temporarily, it helps reduce or eliminate pain. In fact, the longer you take it, the more effective it is. Trying it couldn't be easier with their 3-week quick start for only $19.95, less than $1 a day. And it just takes a phone call to 1-800-4RELIEF. That's 1-800-4-RELIEF. 1-800-4-RELIEF. Wherever you're having pain, every day you feel better is a day you live better. Try Relief Factor's 3-week quick start. Visit ReliefFactor.com. That's ReliefFactor.com, or call 1-800-4-RELIEF. 800-4-RELIEF for Relief Factor.
Living with chronic joint pain is like trying to get comfortable on a cactus sofa. Ouch! Nothing feels good. And forget trying to do the things you enjoy this spring, like golfing, hiking, tennis. Hi, Amy Jacobson here, and I want you to know something. Dr. Ashley Caravelli and the medical pros at QC Kinetics here in Chicago are on the case. I spoke to my friend in Utah who had regenerative medicine with QC Kinetics, and now she does not need that right hip replacement. Seriously, listen up. If you have joint pain in your knees, hips, shoulders, back, with QC Kinetics, the science is solid. They give you back your life without surgery, without drugs, and without any downtime. If you're curious if you're a candidate for these treatments, no problem. The consultation is free with appointments on Saturdays. Now's the best time to get started. Call QC Kinetics at 312-809-5955. That's 312-809-5955. 312-809-5955. QC Kinetics.
AM 560, The Answer. We now return to the real story. Here's your host, Jeannie Ives.
We're back to continue this story, this amazing story between President Reagan and John Paul II, Pope John Paul II, and what they did. Now, Professor Ken Gore, in your book, which is just remarkable, you specifically say that in the weeks leading up to the meeting, this is the meeting where Pope John Paul II and Ronald Reagan are going to meet the first time in June of 1982, so prior to them officially recognizing the papal see. But he says that the president envisioned a final collision course with Soviet communism. He believed that Moscow's days were numbered as long as forces in the West, from Washington to Rome, had the courage and the right policy to confront the Soviets. I mean, those are your words. That's what you wrote about this. I mean, Reagan used the word evil to describe communism and the Soviet Union. That word is usually heard with biblical undertones. No doubt he uses it from a position of faith. In fact, his entire presidency seemed to be singularly focused on stamping out that evil. So was this from a position of faith in your perception of Reagan, or was this more about national security interests?
Yeah, well, that's where Reagan and John Paul II also agreed. They weren't just anti-communist, Jeannie, right? They believed that communism was evil. And in fact, John Paul II, you're going back to those previous popes, Pius XII had said that. Right before Pius XII, the 1937 church encyclical by Pope Pius XI, Divini Redemptoris was the name of it. It described communism as a satanic scourge orchestrated by the sons of darkness. And you know, the church literally described communism as out of the pit of hell. So when Ronald Reagan called the Soviet Union an evil empire, you know, there might have been a meltdown at the New York Times with Anthony Lewis and at the Washington Post with Richard Cohen. But John Paul II just nodded in agreement. He's like, oh, yeah, that's right. And in fact, there's a great statement from Reagan where he said, you know, what we're fighting, the battle we're in, is not of the political order, but of the spiritual order. And that's exactly, I don't think he would have read Divini Redemptoris, the church encyclical from 1937, but it said the exact same thing. So they both view communism as evil, not just something politically wrong, wrong on economics, but, well, as John Paul II said, it anthropologically wrong. It's wrong in its understanding of human nature, of man. But beyond that, they saw it as spiritually wrong. They saw it as evil. And a really key moment between when they meet in June 1982 and where we left off in the last segment when I said Reagan being inaugurated January 1981, well, they had wanted to get together right away once Reagan was inaugurated. But then something diabolical happens to both of them. Reagan was shot on March 30th, 1981, coming out of the Washington Hilton by a man named John Hinckley. And then amazingly, just several weeks later, May 13th, 1981, right smack in the middle of St. Peter's Square, Pope John Paul II was shot by a shooter named Mehmet Ali Asha, a Muslim Turk. And both of them very nearly bled to death and probably should have. So that kind of derails their ability to get together. They both sent each other notes immediately when it happened, when the events happened one to the other. December 13th, 1981, martial law was declared in Poland. They were both furious about that. So they finally get together June 6, 1982 at the Vatican, one-on-one at the Vatican Library for about 50 minutes. And the Pope, John Paul II, spoke 7 languages, so they spoke English without a problem. And they said to one another that they believed that God had spared their lives the year before from the assassination attempts so that they could come together for the special purpose of taking on and defeating Soviet communism. And imagine, Jeannie, you have this non-Polish, non-Catholic president who says to the Polish Pope, he looks at him and he says, hope remains in your country, in Poland. We working together can keep it alive. And they looked at Poland and the solidarity movement there as the block, as the wedge that could split the communist bloc from top to bottom. So thereafter, from 1982 until Reagan left in 1989, they got their 2 groups together. For Reagan, it was Bill Clark at the National Security Council, Bill Casey at the CIA. Those 2 would meet with the papal nuncio to the United States in D.C. And they would together they put together a policy where they worked in so many different ways, in every way that they could, to keep the solidarity movement alive in Poland and do whatever else they could, wherever else they could, to try to defeat Soviet communism. And by the way, it worked.
Well, it did work. And I mean, this is exactly the time that I grew up in. I went into West Point in 1983, Ronald Reagan's Peace Through Strength. I was in Germany, in West Germany, stationed in West Germany when the wall fell. And so you really did see the fruition of somebody's leadership. And I'm also a Catholic. So, I mean, I could see this happening, did not understand the historical significance of those 2 men coming together at that time. I just was, busy with my life, I guess. But these are the stories that I think that we are missing from our current dialogue and certainly from our current education of our children, I would say. So it just so happens that we had many men of faith lead our country. We had John Adams say that, it's required to have a moral and religious people to preserve our Constitution. But I mean, you just don't see that anymore. Right now, you see politicians of faith promote themselves as faithful when they're anything but, like Joe Biden. And you see the Catholic Church give him a pass. And so it seems to be this faithfulness of our leaders is falling apart.
Yeah, well, and I'll say this in a way where I'll try not to be too insulting, but the current Pope and President, especially as potential partners who could work together on the global stage today to confront whatever international menaces out there, do not in any way begin to compare to John Paul II and Ronald Reagan. And I don't mean that in an insulting way. I mean it as a matter of fact. They don't have, like Reagan and John Paul II, this kind of mutual understanding and commitment to anti-communism, to understanding each and every individual, and to quote John Paul II, the sanctity and dignity of human life. Although I should say that Pope Francis is very pro-life. He's actually great on the abortion issue. I have misgivings with a lot of other things, but he's great on the abortion issue.
Yes.
Joe Biden certainly is not. But there hasn't been, and let me say this to kind of let Pope Francis and Biden off the hook in my analogy. There's never been a relationship in the history of America between a president and a pope that compares to what we had between those two in the 1980s. So regardless of who's there right now, this is a very unique, that was a very unique and blessed moment in the 1980s. And I was graduating high school and starting college at the time. And it was, for those of us who lived through it, even if I wasn't as political and ideological and didn't have the understandings that I do today, we still felt that something special was going on. And indeed, something special was going on.
Okay, so one last question. You've written God and Ronald Reagan, A Spiritual Life, God and George W. Bush, A Spiritual Life, God and Hillary Clinton, A Spiritual Life. Will you be writing one on God and Donald Trump, A Spiritual Life? Well,
I actually did get asked to write that book back in 2017.
Oh, okay.
and it was tempting for a number of reasons. Generally, I'm interested in the spiritual lives and faiths of politicians, regardless, across the board, right? But I got asked to do that book on Donald Trump. I passed on it. Somebody else ended up stepping in and doing it anyway, so maybe they let me off the hook. I didn't have to write that one.
All right. Well, he is Paul Kengor, professor at Grove City College, professor of political science, also chief academic fellow for the Institute of Faith and Freedom. And we so appreciate you joining us on this Easter Sunday to talk about the faith of Ronald Reagan and his relationship with Pope John Paul. They were game changers in the entire world. Thank you so much for this interview.
Hey, thanks so much, and a blessed Easter to everybody, and to you too, Jeannie.
Jill, why don't you tell the class what you did this weekend?
Well, my dad and I went in search of some magical minnows and found a zillion of them in the stream from our lookout rock. Then my sister and I escaped from an evil slug king and went back to my super twig fort for safety. Then we told stories till it got dark, and the Big Dipper led us all the way home.
Wow. Where were you, Jill?
We went to the forest. It's not that far away.
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Spring is in the air, and that means it's time to check the starting lineup. Play ball! Leading off for AM 560 every morning at 5, it's Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson, followed at 9 by Mike Gallagher. Moving up in the lineup, it's Charlie Kirk, now heard at 11. Then at 2, it's 2 full hours of Hugh Hewitt, followed by Sean Thompson at 4, Seculo at 7, and rounding out the lineup, Larry Elder at 8. Top to bottom, the best lineup in Chicago radio is right here on AM 560. The Answer.
Fox News. I'm Deborah Valentine. Pope Francis made a brief appearance during Easter services at the Vatican. Fox's Paul Stevens.
Cari fratelli e sorelle, buona Pasqua.
Dear brothers and sisters, Happy Easter.
The Pope, through an interpreter, blessing thousands and taking a ride through the piazza in his open-topped Pope-mobile.
The Pope continues to recover after his hospitalization for double pneumonia. He did not preside over Easter Mass. The Pope called for peace. Russia and Ukraine blaming each other today for breaking a one-day Easter ceasefire declared by President Putin. Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick on CBS's Face the Nation says Ukraine wants peace.
They want peace. They did not ask for this invasion. They did not provoke this invasion. They were invaded by Vladimir Putin, who had been telegraphing this punch for years.
Secretary of State Rubio says U.S. will abandon peace efforts within days if no progress is made. America's listening to Fox News.
Come on, on with this, people. Move it!
Did you really think you could make that company deliver yourself?
Oh, I cannot handle any more traffic.
You could be getting much more done at your place of business.
I've wasted 45 minutes and now this place is gonna close.
Time is money. Let Quick Delivery Service take on the traffic hassle for you. They'll deliver almost anything, from large pallets of materials to important documents, or both. No forms, no labels, no scanning. Just tell Quick Delivery Service where it's going, they'll pick it up, and get it to your destination quickly. Your cargo delivery is tracked in real time with GPS. Notifications are delivered right to your inbox. Visit QuickDelivery.com. That's QuickDelivery.com. Or you can deliver like this.
Seriously, another train?
Or get your delivery there on time with QuickDelivery.com. Or call 847-534-2244. 847-534-2244.
This is a special alert during this window replacement season. Don't get tricked by the cheapest offers and gimmicky ads. Now's the time to see and feel the difference of high-performance windows from Valdecas.
When it's time to consider new windows, siding, and doors for your home, you need to look no further. Sebastian Gorka here to tell you about Valdecas. Valdecas has been the trusted name chosen by thousands of homeowners, and they should be your number one choice too. But what's really behind the name Valdecas? Over 25 years of a team dedicated to providing you with the best customer service experience and products that truly bring value to your home. They are a Pella Platinum Elite Status certified contractor for a reason. They have an A+ rating with the BBB, as well as high ratings and positive reviews on both Google and Houzz. Schedule your free in-house consultation at Valdecas.com.
Ask about their exclusive manufacturer warranties and their 10-year workmanship guarantee.
Don't wait. Book today at Valdecas.com. For the best in class, it's Valdecas.
You never want to miss one of life's most important moments. A graduation, a birthday, a first communion, a wedding. When these moments happen, you want to make sure to capture them so that you and your loved ones can remember them for years to come. For over 30 years, families have relied on Tom Kaloran Photography to capture important life moments. This locally owned family business can provide the solutions you need for your important event photography, from weddings and birthdays to class reunions and golf outings. No matter the size or scope, Tom Kaloran Photography will make sure you have lasting memories to share for years to come. Tom Kaloran Photography is also the official photographer for AM 560 The Answer. To learn more and to see their portfolio, just visit KaloranPhotography.com. That's KILLORAN photography.com. Or call them at 708-361-0025. Tom Kaloran Photography, capturing important life moments for over 30 years.
Did you know that AM 560 Radio has a full-service digital marketing division called Salem Surround? If you're a business decision maker, listen up. AM 560 listeners are everywhere your potential audience is. So are our incredible targeting capabilities. We localize digital marketing and put it within reach of every business, small and large, in Chicagoland and beyond. Salem Surround offers AI-powered marketing solutions that reach your ideal audience. Whether or not you tap into the proven live, local, and emotional connection that AM 560 Radio brings, Salem Surround offers a total marketing solution to our partners, all-in-one digital solutions that provide targeted local digital and social media ads, Google AdWords management, website services, video strategy, search optimization, and even a management dashboard to offer you total campaign updates and transparency. Your Salem Surround representative is located right here in Chicago. Experience the Salem Surround digital revolution today. Call 847-472-8951. That's 847-472-8951.
AM 560, The Answer. The Real Story with Jeannie Ives continues on AM 560, The Answer.
The Trump administration may soon have its chief diplomat at the Vatican. The post has been vacant since the president took office in January. President Trump nominated Brian Burch, president and co-founder of Catholic Vote, to be U.S. ambassador to the Holy See. Today, Burch answered questions during his confirmation hearing before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales joins us now with more. Eric?
Hey, good evening, Owen. A little history lesson here. Formal diplomatic relations with the Holy See were established back in 1984 by then President Ronald Reagan and Pope John Paul II. The mission works in partnership with the Holy See on global issues, including democracy, peace and security, along with foreign aid and human rights. Now, before the hearing, a number of Catholic leaders told me that Brian Burch is the right man for the job.
it's important we have the voice of America in the Holy See, in the diplomatic corps. There are many issues. Brian will do a great job. There's no doubt.
Foreign Relations Committee member Texas Senator John Cornyn says people of all faiths listen to the Pope.
He speaks to the values that I think many of us share, if not all. So I think it's important to have an effective representative of the president as ambassador to the Holy See.
In his opening statement, Burch touched on the global challenges facing the U.S.
Working to resolve war and conflict in multiple regions around the world, religious persecution, the exploitation of the poor and vulnerable, the scourge of human trafficking, and the defense and promotion of human dignity and prosperity.
And the threats from China.
I think it's important to maintain, for the Holy See to maintain a posture of pressure and of applying pressure to the Chinese government around their human rights abuses, particularly their persecution of religious minorities, including Catholics.
Well, that was a little clip from EWTN about the nomination process of Brian Burch. Brian Burch lives right here in the Chicago suburbs, and I am pleased to call him a friend and to know him personally. What they didn't also tell you about his bio, he's a graduate of the University of Dallas. He's got a degree in political philosophy, which perfectly suits him for this position that he's going to be taking on. He's the president of the board for Seton Montessori School in Villa Park, Illinois. He also received the prestigious Cardinal O'Connor Defender of Faith Award from the Legatus International. And he and his wife, Sarah, have 9 children. Brian joins me now. Brian, thank you so much for coming on this program. It's such an honor to have you on.
Well, thank you so much. It's super exciting to be done with that hearing that I had to go through and now to talk with friends instead of senators.
So I just wanted to let my audience know that we are taping this show. It is airing on Easter Sunday, but we're taping this on April 10th, as both of us have religious things and family obligations today. But this is also new content, and we like to give you new content even when it's taped content. Brian, are there other religious ambassadors?
This is a good question. There are some ambassadors. Well, there are ambassadors from other countries to the Holy See. In fact, I believe there are at least 60 or more ambassadors from foreign countries at the Holy See. So I will be joining that club. There is no ambassador, for example, to Islam, or no ambassador. There is an ambassador to Israel. Obviously, Mike Huckabee was just confirmed just in the last couple of days. But no, the Holy See is a sovereign state. And this is important. I think sometimes there's some confusion. I'm not the ambassador to the Catholic Church. I'm the United States representative to the sovereign state of the Holy See, which does maintain diplomatic relations with over 180 countries around the world.
Well, that just perfectly suits what the whole confirmation hearing was about, because it was not necessarily about Catholic faith, but what the Pope and his position would do in terms of, like you heard, peace and security, diplomatic relations with other folks, and what you mentioned, religious persecution abroad, sexual trafficking. So these are core issues that you would maybe, as an ambassador, work on with any other country.
Yes, it's interesting because if you're a typical ambassador would work on things like trade and foreign policy and maybe some military components, and working to have businesses from that country do business in the United States, or get their NATO percentage up, for example. None of those things apply to the Holy See. We're not providing arms to the Swiss Guards, for example. But what we are doing is working really hand in glove with the Holy See on a whole array of issues around the world. And the Holy See has been an extremely important partner. And Senator Ricketts, I think, cited the example from the 1980s, where the Holy See, together with the United States, with President Reagan and St. John Paul II, that relationship was really important in resolving the problem of the Soviet Union.
Yeah, no doubt.
And this relationship continues today. We have all sorts of ways the U.S. is working, often quietly, with the Holy See on conflicts around the world.
I mean, there was an entire book, The President, the Pope, and the Prime Minister, The Three Who Changed the World, that book by John O'Sullivan. The entire book is dedicated to Reagan, John Paul II, and Margaret Thatcher, and their courage to help ordinary citizens, ordinary people rise up against communist Soviet Union. So, I mean, when you look at it in that context and you understand also what's happening in China, which was addressed in your hearing, you know, there is conflict right there between the Chinese party being involved in deciding which Catholic bishops are officially the bishop. Do you see a pathway there where you're going to be working on China policy along with President Trump and his endeavors, whether it's trade policy or things like that? Do you see a path in your position to also be working on the China problem?
I do, and I think it's actually going to be very important, and I mentioned this in my hearings. You know, all roads kind of lead to addressing the challenges of China when you're a diplomat, because they are one of our chief adversaries economically and otherwise. And so as the ambassador to the Holy See, my job will be to do what is in the interests of the United States with respect to China's positioning in the world. And some may say, well, this is just an internal church thing. No, actually not. The relationship between the Holy See and China is very important. As you suggest, they have ceded some control, at least in a secretive agreement that we don't know the details of, over the appointment of bishops. But more importantly, and I think this speaks to really the bigger kind of opportunity here, which is the power of soft power. How does the Holy See exercise its influence in the world? And it does so, and Jeannie, I know you would appreciate this as a fellow Catholic, it does it through the moral witness and the moral authority of the truth. And we often think of conflicts or challenges as just some sort of kind of realpolitik, trade, economic, financial kind of question. And the truth is, all of these questions have a deep moral dimension to them. And the United States, at least historically, has played a significant role in making not just kind of transactional arguments, but moral arguments about what's good for the United States and the world. And this is where I see, this is where the Holy See can be a real partner, because when the Pope speaks, whether you like the Pope or not, and people have various opinions on that, when the Holy See speaks through the Pope and through its various persons in the Vatican, the world pays attention. You know, you've seen it. When the Pope dies, the world is all focused on who's going to be the next Pope. The entire media cycle, there will be thousands of media. We will all be paying attention. Why is that? Because when the church speaks, it matters.
Well, I think you're actually taking over this role at a very significant time in history. I mean, Trump is revolutionizing everything. Everything's a reset on the international stage. And it's not just about trade, it's everything. It's how we handle national security problems. It's like you said, we could actually be seeing a new pope during your tenure here. That could be a complete reset too. So, I mean, I also think it's very important to understand that Trump, many people have said that he seemed to get religion after he got shot. And he seemed to become more almost faithful. Now, Reagan always had this sort of faith. He mentioned God a number of times in his speeches. In fact, he tended to mention God much more than any other president. So Trump doesn't necessarily go there all the time. But certainly you've got an ally in Vice President J.D. Vance, who he himself is Catholic. Is that going to be beneficial to you?
Yeah, this is a really good point. And a lot of times people try to think through the question of the relationship between religion and politics and how to apply that, particularly in the context of candidates. Of course, this is what I do for a living or have done for a living and may stop doing soon if I am indeed confirmed. But you make a really important point that what the Trump administration represents, in my view, is very consistent with a lot of what I understand to be the priorities, principles, and teachings of the church. And that is reorienting the world in a way where countries prioritize the dignity, needs, and livelihood and prosperity of their people. That we do have a responsibility to, as Scripture would say, be our brother's keeper. Well, what does that mean in the context of politics? Yes, of course, a social safety net where necessary. Yes, a thriving economy, but also a set of policies from tax to trade to foreign aid, which I got asked about, and all sorts of things that say we put our fellow citizens first. We prioritize not some random person that we've never met, although they, of course, have dignity, but we prioritize the needs of the person who lives next to us in our communities, within our states, and ultimately within our country. And we have to take care of our people. And I think this is something that both the president and the vice president have made so clear. And I think one of the reasons why they were elected by such an overwhelming number is people saw that this president deeply cares about Americans and about putting Americans, again, back at the front of the line.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back because my next line of questioning is really about how did you become the nominee for Ambassador to the Holy See, and how does your family feel about it? We'll be right back. This is The Real Story with Jeannie Ives.
You can hear this today at PragerTopia.com.
Let's go, folks. Here we go. Whatever is on your mind. I love this hour.
As a Jew, being taught as a child and through my Hebrew school, we do not write the O in God, as you stated. My question is this. After hearing that awesome explanation that it's not lying by using God's name, do you personally underscore the O, or do you spell out God?
Hear the entire episode. It's for Pragertopia members only. Go to PragerTopia.com.
Jeff Tishlar, author of High Tech versus the Highest Tech, has shared his knowledge of the spectacular things that we see in nature as opposed to what man has created, and how this should inform one's faith. Jeff served on the mission field all over the world and has created this highly illustrated and concisely written technical book. The easy-to-read format is understood from the youngest reader to the most intelligent and mature readers. Google and Amazon book reviews include, "This is the best little book I have ever read. It is amazing how much information is in this book." And a beautifully written and illustrated book. The author has a gift for describing complicated technical details in a very understandable style. This book is available now in paperback on Amazon. Search High Tech versus the Highest Tech by Jeff Tishlar. 100% of proceeds go to missions. That's High Tech vs. the Highest Tech by Jeff Tishlar.
Hi, I'm Ken Mariotti, owner of Woodland Windows and Doors, a third-generation family-owned business since 1969. We know you're bombarded by choices when shopping for new windows or doors, so we're inviting you to experience the Woodland difference. For decades, we have been transforming living spaces with Marvin Windows, a fifth-generation family business. Marvin replacement windows have been known to increase the warmth of your cold rooms by 10 degrees. Think about that, 10 degrees warmer. When you welcome Woodland into your home, you will get a product expert to transform your living spaces, full-time, dedicated professional installers that you can trust in your home, along with the best products like Marvin. These are the reasons we're proud of our 5-star reviews and family legacy. No gimmicks, no pressure, and upfront pricing are why Woodland Windows and Doors is your trusted window and door expert in Chicagoland. Visit woodlandwindows.com to book your free in-home expert consultation. That's woodlandwindows.com, or stop by our showroom at the corner of Lake and Geary in Roselle.
Hey, heard you're getting ready to move.
We just listed our house on the market.
Just make sure you have the right attorney.
Doesn't the real estate agent take care of all that?
They stay involved, but you want to make sure you have a great lawyer that's negotiating the terms, helping resolve inspection items, clearing up title issues, preparing the deed and other documents, and attending the closing.
The attorneys at Nauman & Associates in Elk Grove Village have decades of experience handling real estate transactions every day all over Chicagoland. NALawGroup.com.
AM 560, The Answer. Now, more of The Real Story with your host, Jeannie Ives.
Hey, welcome back. I'm interviewing Brian Burch. He is the co-founder of Catholic Vote. And he is now been nominated as ambassador to the Holy See. And as we air this, it's more likely than not that he has been confirmed in that role as well. So, Brian Burch, how do you go from being the co-founder of Catholic Vote and working really on the political scene to get Catholics to vote like a Catholic, to then becoming the ambassador to the Holy See?
Oh, gosh. It's called God's plans are not my plans, or my plans are not God's plans. I had no idea this was going to happen. We worked extremely hard for the president. We spent a record amount of money to mobilize, educate, turn out Catholic voters. And it turned out the president saw that and he liked it, as he's apt to do. And my name was in the mix following the November results. And not to bore you with all the details, but it slowly climbed up the chain and my name kept getting mentioned to the president. And when he went to decide who to represent him at the Holy See, he ultimately thought that I would be the best person. And so I had some inkling that I was in the running, so to speak, but you never know. It could always change. And I think the president was looking at a number of extremely qualified people. And then one morning I got a call, and you get a call from someone on the campaign that I knew that I'd worked with who was working on the transition team. And they say, those famous words that I'll always remember, stand by, I have the president of the United States for you. And there he is. He's on the phone and he says hello, and you know what's happening and you're kind of frozen. Like, what do you say? And he obviously asked me if I wanted to do it, nominated me, and I told him I'd be honored, beyond honored. I said, this is the dream of a lifetime, and I still kind of can't believe it. It seems still a little surreal that if I'm indeed confirmed soon, that I will be headed to Rome for the next 3.5 years to represent my country.
So you have 9 children. I know some are in college. I think you're even a grandfather at this point. How young is your youngest, and how do they feel about the transitioning over to Europe and Italy?
Well, I think I scared the embassy a little bit when they first saw the photo of my nomination and thought, oh my, he's bringing 9 children over to Rome. That's not true. I have some older children, some that have graduated, including one that's married and had our first grandchild last year. So my bottom 4, 6, 9, 12, and 15 would go if we're confirmed. They would live with us, obviously, at the ambassador's residence over in Rome. We don't live in Vatican City, by the way. The ambassador to the Holy See still lives in Rome. And I think they're still kind of trying to figure out what's going to happen. We're working on all the practical questions. Where will they go to school? How are they going to learn Italian? Especially a lot of the schools are bilingual. How will they get to school? What will security be like? The security for the ambassador is pretty extensive. But it'll be okay to put your kids on a bus as the ambassador's children? And what if other people, threaten them? There's all these sorts of interesting questions, practical sides of things where, I get to go do my role, but you still have a family. That's the most important thing to me, that will be with me. And we'll have lots of events at the residence. We'll have cardinals and archbishops and dignitaries and all sorts of people that I will be with as I carry out my job. And I hope to incorporate my children. I'd love to have them at the dinners at the residence, listening and meeting. And I jokingly told them recently, I want them to be the Von Trapp family kids. Well, in the end of the evening, they can sing a little song as they go upstairs to bed, but I don't think they're ready for that yet.
Well, and your wife's going to be definitely taking on some additional duties, being the ambassador's wife. She's going to have to host a lot of things, and I'm sure she's up for that as well.
She is. She's wonderful. We love hospitality, and that's a big part of an ambassador's job. Yes, you have a lot of meetings, but a lot of the work that you do is through building relationships and friendships, and it being Rome, through meals and probably some pasta and wine. But no, it will be one of the really delightful parts of the job is to welcome guests and do the work in the midst of all sorts of different types of events that the ambassador gets to participate in.
Well, your kids are going to get a taste of Italian culture as well. And it appears to me that you're probably Irish as background. So it's all good.
Well, my wife is Irish. I'm a little bit of a European mutt, but we are deeply Catholic and deeply patriotic about the United States. So there's no better role, and we are so honored. Again, should I be confirmed? That's always the caveat. But should I be confirmed, I cannot wait to get over there and represent our country, and hope to do it honorably and faithfully. And stay tuned. I expect there to be an exciting couple of years ahead.
Well, that's great. I hope that you're able to come back on my program at some point while you are over there as the ambassador. Brian Burch, thank you so much for joining me on The Real Story.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
The American military brings together brave men and women from across the country who have chosen to answer the call when their country needs them most. At aviatorfuel.com, we know the military because we live the military life. with books written by a Navy pilot and run by a hard-working military spouse. AviatorFuel.com is proud of our service and our country. That's why we never compromise on authenticity. Our cocktail books are modeled off the real Army, Navy, and Marine pilot checklists that military aviators have used for decades. But instead of a procedure on how to handle an engine fire, you'll find the procedure for how to make a mojito. From classic recipes to military specials like the Queen of Battle or the Afterburner, our cocktail books have something special for every veteran. So go to aviatorfuel.com and get ready to raise a glass to the brave men and women who serve our country. That's aviatorfuel.com.
Larry Elder here. Do not miss my new movie called Electric Vehicles, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Are EVs really better for the planet than gas-powered vehicles?
Torque is instantaneous. The batteries are lasting very long.
Sitting in the parking lot just burst into flames.
We're going to be relying on China. It's not just a movie about cars. It's about how we choose to shape our future. Electric Vehicles, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Produced by Impactful Pictures. Watch it or buy the DVD on April 22nd at salemnow.com.
Honey, we're not moving, but we gotta do something about this kitchen.
Funny you mention it. I just stopped by Forever Remodeling's new showroom in Niles. I saw over a dozen kitchen and bathroom layouts they designed. They even offered to stop by the house and give us a free in-home design consultation.
What'd you tell them?
That we're free today?
Visit foreverremodeling.com today. That's the number 4, everremodeling.com. Forever Remodeling, stress-free and high-quality remodeling.
AM 560, The Answer. We now return to the real story. Here's your host, Jeannie Ives.
Wasn't that refreshing to hear from Brian Burch, a local guy headed to the Vatican to help represent us? It's so exciting for him and his family. I really appreciate it. And I'm delighted that he has promised that he will be back on The Real Story with Jeannie Ives once he gets settled into his new position and can give us an update on what he is doing. But coming up next, we have Pastor Corey Brooks, and he's going to talk about his missionary trip to Africa with 30 young people from his congregation. Don't turn the dial. This is Jeannie Ives. This is our Easter show. Thank you for joining me tonight.
When you hear the term living better, what do you think about? More money, a bigger house, maybe a yacht? What about how you feel physically? How do you wake up each day? How do you sleep during the night? What activities you can and cannot do? When you feel good, life is good. So if pain is affecting your life, see how Relief Factor can help. Relief Factor is a daily supplement that fights pain naturally, developed by doctors. It doesn't just mask pain temporarily. It helps reduce or even eliminate pain. How do I know? Absolutely am a customer. I take Relief Factor daily. No lower back pain for me anymore. In fact, the longer you take it, the more effective it is. Give their 3-week quick start a try. It's only $19.95, less than $1 a day. Just one phone call, 800-4-RELIEF, 800-4-RELIEF. Relief Factor, relief wherever you're hurting in 3 weeks or even days. Relief Factor can give you a chance to rediscover the true meaning of living better again. Visit ReliefFactor.com or call 800-4-RELIEF. That's 800-4-RELIEF for the one and only Relief Factor.
News, opinion, insight. This is AM 560, The Answer. WIND, Chicago. Streaming at 560theanswer.com on the AM 560 mobile app, or tell your smart speaker to play The Answer Chicago.
A senator defends his support of a deported migrant. I'm Deborah Valentine, Fox News. Maryland Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen recently traveled to El Salvador in an effort to push for illegal immigrant and suspected MS-13 gang member Kilmar Abrego Garcia's return to the U.S. Van Hollen tells Fox News Sunday with Shannon Bream that he isn't vouching for the man, but rather his right to due process.
They never affirmatively found that he was a member of MS-13. They never, of course, charged him with any crime. And what the judge ultimately did in the immigration case was say that his life would be at risk from other gangs, if he was returned to El Salvador, which is why he got a work permit.
The Department of Homeland Security recently released records of a temporary protective order Garcia's wife filed against him in 2021 in an effort to show a violent history. El Salvador's president is proposing his country and Venezuela do a prisoner swap. Fox's Jill Nato has details.
El Salvador's President Bukele posted on X he wants to exchange Venezuelan deportees his country has imprisoned from the U.S. for what he calls political prisoners in Venezuela. He wants to send 252 Venezuelans back to their home country and take in 252 family members of opposition figures detained during Venezuela's crackdown last year. He wrote to President Nicolas Maduro, the only reason they are imprisoned is for having opposed you. The proposal comes after the Trump administration handed over Venezuelan deportees alleged to be gang members who are now locked up in El Salvador's terrorism confinement center. Jill Nato, Fox News.
Virginia has reported its first official case of measles as the outbreak spreads across the U.S. America's listening to Fox News.
Now, your official weather forecast.
It'll be cloudy overnight, increasingly windy with periods of rain and a thunderstorm with low 53. Couple of sprinkles tomorrow morning, then windy, variably cloudy with high 57. Clear, starry sky tomorrow night. Good conditions for viewing the meteor shower with low 41. Increasing cloudiness come Tuesday, milder with high 63. I'm Ruth O'Brien on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Hut, hut. Listen up and listen up good. If you're tired of run-of-the-mill gifts, then get on over to aviatorfuel.com. You'll find unique military-style cocktail books and barware to go with it. At aviatorfuel.com, we've got the perfect gift for any soldier, sailor, Marine, or just red-blooded American. You'll especially love our military cocktail checklists, modeled off the real Army, Navy, and Marine pilot checklists that military aviators have used for decades. These award-winning books are authentic replicas, but instead of a procedure on how to handle an engine fire, you'll find the procedure for how to make a mojito, written with military jargon throughout. So pick up a cocktail checklist from aviatorfuel.com. Invite some old friends to share war stories over cocktails. Your perfect libation is inside the cocktail checklist. And don't forget matching military-themed barware. Go to aviatorfuel.com and get ready to raise a glass to the brave men and women who serve our country. That's aviatorfuel.com.
Maha starts with Virago, making America healthy again. With the worst flu season in years, you need an immune system boost. The stronger your immune system, the stronger your body fights and defends against and. So get Virago. Virago Immune Enhancement Support is a unique blend of 23 nutraceuticals, ingredients that have been available as individual nutraceuticals, but now working in synergy to maximize their effects. Recommended by medical physicians, dentists, and other healthcare professionals, Virago is the nutraceutical cocktail for immune support. Developed to strengthen your immune system for quick response to immune challenges, for short and long-term immunity, antiviral, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant. It even protects your heart, kidneys, liver, all in a unique liquid supplement for better absorption. Order online at myvirago.com. That's myvirago.com. myvirago.com. Use coupon code IMMUNE to save 30%. Quality ingredients for optimum health. Maha, making America healthy again starts with Virago.
Salem News Channel is America's fastest growing conservative TV network.
It's an absolute crazy day.
Home to the largest lineup of free speech champions anywhere. Delivering in-depth insight and unapologetic opinion on today's biggest news stories.
Americans aren't going to put up with this anymore.
SNC brings you the news that matters, told with integrity and clarity. Watch Salem News Channel free 24/7 on your television. Stream now on Pluto TV.
The following is a pre-recorded program. If we want to preserve our constitutional republic, we need an informed and educated citizenry. And that's what this show is all about. Find out what's really happening. It's time to stop the lies and learn the truth. This is The Real Story with your host, Jeannie Ives.
Hello, America. I'm Pastor Corey Brooks. From the south side of Chicago to the nation's capital, many of you know me as the Rooftop Pastor. I recently spent 343 days living on top of a roof through Chicago's cold and heat to bring awareness to the violence and to raise money for this much-needed community center that you see being built behind me. And because of the many donations from Americans just like yourself, we are raising the needed funds for this glorious leadership and economic community center. We aim nothing less than the full transformation of Chicago's most violent block, O Block, into Opportunity Block. Chicago remains the homicide capital of America. 13 years straight. According to WirePoints, 573 homicides were committed in Chicago during 2024 at the rate of 21.5 homicides per 100,000 residents. These depressing numbers far exceed those of other major cities like New York City, Houston, and Los Angeles. Yet most of Chicago's city leaders may as well be living on another planet. They refuse to look at the reality in all of its ugliness. After an unruly mob of over 300 kids took over Streetersville and the Loop recently, Mayor Brandon Johnson said the solution was more safe spaces. Safe spaces for who? Anybody who knows Streeterville, home to the Navy Pier, knows that it is one of the safest neighborhoods in all of Chicago. In fact, there were 2 shootings in March. Both were due to large gatherings of teen mobs. That's 2 shootings that could have been prevented had the city taken this problem seriously long before. When Mayor Johnson first took office, there were 3 consecutive nights of street takeovers in the Loop and nearby areas. Fellow Chicagoans and out-of-towners were assaulted. Stores had their windows smashed and were robbed. When we raised our collective outrage back then, Mayor Johnson chastised us for demonizing children. I've never put any of my faith in him. I didn't vote for him and was immensely disappointed when he won. I knew that Chicago would continue on with business as usual. Now I'm seeing more and more Chicagoans wake up to the reality of this mayor. Many of them betrayed their common sense and voted for him out of identity politics. But the reality of the horror shows that this mayor has become too much for them to bear, especially when the children are at stake.
That's Pastor Corey Brooks raising hell in Chicago, so to speak, raising awareness about what's going on. And he joins me now to talk about his Fox News commentaries that he does frequently. By the way, Pastor Corey Brooks is a visionary leader. He's committed to eradicating violence and transforming lives in Chicago's South Side. He's the founder and the senior pastor of New Beginnings Church of Chicago and the CEO of Project Hood Communities Development Corporation. His academic journey took him through Ball State University, University of Florida, Dallas Theological Seminary, and Grace Theological Seminary. He's been a friend for a while, and I'm so proud to call him a friend, and I'm so delighted to have him on my program with me tonight to talk about what he is doing to transform lives on the South Side. Pastor Brooks, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, and thanks for having me on the show.
Well, it's interesting. You did that clip on Fox News not that long ago, and you have related what's going on in Chicago to the effort that you've been making in the South Side, in the violent neighborhoods that you're part of, what you call O Block, really Opportunity Block, because you are transforming that neighborhood. Now, you are somebody who has rejected victimhood mentality. You have rejected diversity training and saying that it hasn't helped anyone. You've also rejected identity politics. In fact, you've spoke about it, you've written about it. But just recently, you took a group of young folks in your community to South Africa. So why was that trip so important, and what were the lessons learned?
Thank you. Well, the trip was important for a whole lot of reasons. One of those reasons is that for far too long, a lot of our young people in our neighborhood have become victims, and they have a victim mindset. And for far too long, they have thought that they can't accomplish certain things and they can't do certain things. And I wanted to take them to see a group of people who don't have a lot of resources, but yet they are not dependent upon government. They're resilient and courageous. And I wanted them to see what it looks like for people who don't have anything, but they're not blaming people and they're not walking around with a victim mentality. They're trying to take responsibility for their lives, and even in the midst of not having anything, still trying to be producers. And I wanted them to see that. And I wanted them to see what it's like to really have, to live in poverty. A lot of these young people, they live in some very difficult situations. A lot of them come from what we call the projects, but poverty is a different level in these third world countries. And so I wanted them to see that. And then, of course, I wanted them to see how faith was being acted out with kids, how kids their age had tremendous faith in God, and they believed in family, and they were highly disciplined. So there's so many lessons that are important for them to learn from the trip to Zimbabwe, and so many lessons on why we took them.
So how many children did you take? What ages were they? And what really hit them? What did they say on the way back that they learned?
We took a group of 30 kids in ages from 11 to 17. And one of the best things that I was so glad that they learned was the discipline, how disciplined the kids were in Zimbabwe. We went to several schools, and those schools were packed, and they were like on top of each other. But there was no horse playing, there was no joking, there was no crying. These kids were diligent and disciplined, and they did it with lots of joy. That was a big lesson for our kids to see and to learn.
How about the spirituality of what you saw in Africa compared to what you may see in your own church?
Man, you had a group of people who, especially the young kids, who decided that even in the midst of difficulty and hard circumstances and a struggling life, that they still put God first. And they had such great faith. And, like I said, the joy that they had in singing songs to God, in praying, how they treated one another, it was exemplary. And so it was so uniquely different from our community and our kids. And so we needed Zimbabwe and those kids more than they needed us.
So there's a universality, I think, about being a Christian, that you can find similar, maybe even songs, but similar practices around the world. Did they see anything similar? I know that you're a Christian pastor. Did they find familiarity?
One of the amazing things was that they were able to see these young people with such joy, and the similarities that they were able to pick up, like them being able to see themselves, even just the dancing, some of the dance moves and some of the techniques, seeing those kids, seeing that some of those similarities were the same was, really amazing. Singing some of the same songs, just in a different style. But I think most of all, one of the biggest things was them being able to see themselves, the fact that they saw people who could live on their block, people who looked like their grandmother and grandfather. And so that was unique as well. And so it was a unique experience for these young people, and for them to see those type of, to witness and being in that type of environment was a tremendous blessing.
So how about technology? Was there a little bit of a shock to them? I imagine many of them had cell phones with them.
Yeah.
And obviously, were they sharing cell phone images and stuff with the children that they interact with themselves? Or am I just overstating that all?
No, that's a good point to hit, because I think all of us had a little shock, because I'm used to going out of the country, and no matter where I am, my cell phone has always worked. It carries over to the next place. But in Zimbabwe, their infrastructure is so bad that most of our cell phones were not working until we got to internet. And even when we got to internet, some of the internet were so slow, and it caused us to have so many issues. So to see these young people having to function in another country on a different time zone without their phones, that was a story in and of itself. And I learned something from that, just how dependent our kids have become on technology, and for them not to be able to function. And they were so hectic and so overwhelmed by not being able to have access to their phones. And so that was a whole nother story. I think when we go the next time, we're going to do something along the lines so that these kids know, hey, you're not going to be able to use your phone, so they'll be used to it. But that definitely took some getting used to.
Did any of the children trace their lineage back to Zimbabwe, or do they have any familial connections there?
Yeah, it's just Africa in general. The fact we didn't get to do like the Ancestry.com or the DNA. I really wish we could have, but most blacks in America are not from Zimbabwe or the Zambia area. We're more so from the Ghana and Nigeria area, things like that, Senegal and things like that. And so that's a different coast. But nonetheless, just being able to experience Africa and being able to experience a place that they've never been to, and to see so many different things, because these kids, they hear about Africa and they hear all these stories, and then to get to Africa and see, this is not what I thought it was, it's totally different. It was a really big surprise for a lot of them.
Yeah, so you know what? We're going to take a real quick break right now, and we'll be right back with more from Pastor Corey Brooks. You're joining me on The Real Story with Jeannie Ives.
For nearly a decade, AM 560 has marked the start of summer with a night of cigar smoking and great conversation. And this year, we've expanded Cigar Night to 2 nights. Wednesday, May 21st at Goldbert's Farm in Pingree Grove, and Thursday, May 22nd at Gaelic Park in Oak Forest. Featuring the great Larry Elder, along with AM 560's Dan Proft and Sean Thompson. Tickets are on sale now at 560theanswer.com/cigar. That's 560theanswer.com/cigar. Sponsored by Fox Valley Coins.
Hey, Amy Jacobson here, and OMG, I was absolutely speechless when I saw my new garage floor. Level 10 Coatings did such an amazing job, and now my garage floor shines. Level 10 Coatings specializes in expert garage floor coatings for both residential and commercial spaces. Their floors are durable, easy to maintain, and best of all, done in just 1 day. Hey, if you've been thinking about upgrading your garage floor with that shiny new showroom look, please call my good friends at Level 10 Coatings at 855-510-2628 or book your free consultation online at level10coatings.com. And here's a bonus. Mention me, Amy Jacobson, and you'll get $500 off your project. Call 855-510-2628 or visit level10coatings.com today, or call 855-510-2628.
Imagine using your skills and experiences to inspire young minds. We see the teacher in you. No matter your starting point, we can help you become a teacher. Teaching offers consistent pay, a pension, and summers off. Learn how you can be the teacher. Visit BeTheTeacher.org. Sponsored by Grow Your Own Teachers, Illinois.
We always use M13. They can print anything.
They design and price match. M13 does amazing work.
M13 Graphics has helped make our brand stand out. They're definitely the best for less.
Before M13, amateur. With M13, we look awesome.
M13 Graphics, Chicago's leader in full-color design and printing. Set your business up for success with exceptional print products, turned around in just 24 to 48 hours. Business cards, postcards, posters, banners, brochures, apparel, you name it. M13 will design and print nearly anything for your business. They have the right people in place and a reputation that keeps customers happy and coming back for more. They're a Chicago company that embodies the idea of business integrity. They live it every day. After all, in this country, you're free to do business with who you choose. Respect that freedom. Choose the best. For speedy turnaround, excellent service, and the best pricing in Chicagoland, choose M13 Graphics for all your design and printing. Online at M13.com. Visit M13.com or call now, toll free, 877-M13-1913. That's 877-M13-1913.
Attention American homeowners, you're under attack. Your home and equity could be vulnerable to cyber thieves. There's only one company that completely stops them, and that company is Equity Protect. Equity Protect prevents any attempts to steal your home, equity, and ownership 24/7. Get your free risk report today by texting the word HOME to 94878. That's right, text the word HOME to 94878 to get your free risk report. Keep your equity and legacy safe with Equity Protect.
AM 560, The Answer. The Real Story with Jeannie Ives continues on AM 560. The Answer.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining me on this Easter Sunday. We've got some heartwarming stories to share with you, and we're right in the middle of one with Pastor Corey Brooks. He is the rooftop pastor. He spent 343 days to raise funds for his Leadership and Economic Opportunity Center. He's doing a great job on that. We were just talking to him, though, about his trip to Africa with a number of youth in his area that he pastors. And coming back off the trip, they're flying back, Pastor Brooks. Is there just an immense gratitude to be back in the United States?
Yeah, there's no country better than America, and we are so fortunate to live in such a wonderful country where we can express our faith and where we can live out certain liberties. And, while we were in Zimbabwe on the way out, they were getting ready to have a coup, overthrow the government. And so to be in a country where we don't have to worry about that type of thing is always a big blessing.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That would have been an experience for the children. Did they have any recognition of the political environment in South Africa, which is, there's pockets where it's just absolutely unsafe to go?
Yeah. We had a really good study while there, and they were able to learn about when apartheid, which was in South Africa, and some of those issues that they faced carried over to Zimbabwe. And at that time, it was called Rhodesia, and how a lot of the British people were moved out of Zimbabwe and their land was taken and so forth. And they learned the ramifications of that, the good and the bad of that. And now to see where Zimbabwe is compared to where it used to be the breadbasket of Africa, and now their infrastructure is so bad. And so for them to learn the difference and walk through that and talk about it and discuss it was a really good lesson for them to learn.
You're doing amazing work. I think it's really important for these kids to understand how America compares and and have a sense of gratitude for where they are. I appreciate you going. You did get some pushback, though, from some people who thought that the trip was not important.
Yeah, there's always a group of people, especially when it comes to things that I do, because I don't shy away from the fact that I'm conservative. I don't shy away from the fact that I hold certain values and viewpoints that oftentimes are contrary to the viewpoints of most of the people who live in our community. And so sometimes we get pushed back, not sometimes, a lot of times we get pushed back for some of the things that we try to do because they're contrary to the way that most people do them. But nonetheless, we push forward. And we are blessed because we have so many people who come alongside us to help us to make sure that it happens. And even in the face of living in a strong liberal community, we're still able to produce some great things. And so we're appreciative of that.
Well, you're doing great work. You're producing a lot. You've got this entire Leadership and Economic Opportunity Center going. You've got your own New Beginnings Church. You've got just Project Hood in general and all the services that you provide to folks around there. You've raised a lot of money for this project. You still need to raise a little bit more, I believe, to complete it. But tell my listeners a little bit more about the project, and in the end, what will that community center mean for the people in Englewood?
Absolutely. So it's 90,000 square foot of Leadership and Economic Opportunity Center, the Robert R. McCormick Leadership and Economic Opportunity Center. This center is in the center of transformation of our neighborhood. It's the linchpin of what's going to take place about creating opportunities where there have been a lack of opportunities. The center itself is going to house a bank so we can teach financial literacy, an entrepreneurial school so we can start businesses and help entrepreneurs, a health and wellness clinic so we can focus on the health and the wellness, because what good is it for you to have wealth and not have any health? And so that we have a component of that. We have a trade school where we're learning the trades from carpentry to electrical to plumbing and HVAC and roofing, along with automotive. We have a music studio, a theater, where we're really focusing on the arts and teaching kids how to not just be in front of a camera or on the stage, but there's so many other opportunities expertise behind the camera and behind the stage. And so they're going to learn those things as well as editing music. And then we have a swimming pool, which a lot of the kids are really excited about because they don't have access to swimming pools in our neighborhoods. And then, of course, we have 2 basketball gyms, a workout facility, and all the other things that a regular community center would have. And we have a STEM lab and 3 restaurants. It's a big facility. And I would love for people to come down and just check it out on 6620 South King Drive. And if they ever want to come down, just come down to projecthood.org. They can look it up on the website, projecthood.org, and they can see how they can visit us and see all the work that we're doing.
Well, you're an oasis in a desert of a lot of dysfunction in the state of Illinois, a lot of crime, a lot of poverty, and you are that beacon of hope. But it wasn't an easy route. Let's face it, you've made it look easy to others. There's no doubt that around the country, you're probably getting asked, how did you do it? First of all, you're a visionary leader. You had a vision. I think recently you were just at the New York Stock Exchange. So you've got a Fox News regular opinion piece out. This didn't just happen overnight, right? This has been years of you working hard, doing the tough job of building a community, building support, finding a donor base, and actually transforming lives along the way, not waiting for a center, but doing what you can in the interim. How long have you been at it? And what were just give me like a couple of the key points where, you saw a turning point?
Yeah, we've been trying to build this center now for the last 15 years, 14 years. It's been a long time in the making. It's been a lot of hard work. We've faced a lot of trials, a lot of barriers, a lot of difficulty. A lot of Democrats and liberals have hated the fact that we're using conservative principles and values to do a wonderful work in a neighborhood that has been predominantly Democrat for years. And so we've faced a lot of roadblocks and a lot of hatred and a lot of people who have tried to shoot us down. But thankfully, we've been able to push forward with the help of thousands, and I mean thousands of people from across the country and even in Illinois who have come alongside to assist us to make sure that we're doing something that's transformational on this block that desperately needs it. And so the thing that has kept us going is that the love and the compassion that we've gotten from so many people, that even in the face of rejection from sometimes our political figures and leaders, we've still gotten so much love and so much help with resources to build this center that it just motivates you and keeps you going, because you don't want to let those individuals down who believe in your vision, who believe in what you're trying to accomplish, and they want to see things better and they want to have an alternative way to do it. And so the fact that we've been able to do this successfully without depending on the government has been a tremendous blessing. So that keeps us motivated and that keeps us going and keeps us believing that we can accomplish the impossible. Every time I look across the street and I look at that building and see everything that's being done, I'm just tremendously grateful. And then the fact that we had the opportunity to ring the bell. Who would have ever thought that a little organization on the south side of Chicago would be ringing the bell at the New York Stock Exchange? That's major.
That's amazing. You're an amazing person. Again, I am just so appreciative for you coming on and sharing your story and working with those children. And we're 100% behind you, Pastor Brooks. I really appreciate you. Have a blessed Easter night, the rest of the night. Really appreciate you coming on. He's Pastor Corey Brooks, the visionary leader of Project Hood and the senior pastor of New Beginnings Church. Thanks a lot for joining me on The Real Story.
President Trump's tariff policies have turned the stock market into a roller coaster.
Across the board, all of the different sectors are down.
Reciprocal tariffs are also being lowered during that period. U.S. stocks surged on the news.
Don't know how long these tariffs are going to be in place.
Chaos that is being created as all U.S. trading partners are hit.
The American public is invested in some way in the market.
Stay on top of where the markets are headed next, right here on AM 560. The Answer.
Kathleen Maloney. After President
Putin of Russia declared an Easter ceasefire in Ukraine. Both sides accuse the other of violating it. Republican Congressman Jeff Van Drew tells Fox it's time to make a deal.
Zelensky better get with it. Give it a shot. If Russia isn't good to their word, certainly then Ukraine will deal with it. But give them a chance. Go for it. Let's get started. Maybe it'll lead somewhere.
President Trump on Truth Social calling for a deal this week. Pope Francis blessing crowds at the Vatican this Easter, also meeting with Vice President J.D. Vance despite differences.
The Pope and other Vatican officials, they have criticized several Trump administration policies in the past, including the president's plan to deport millions of migrants from the U.S. and the widespread cuts to foreign aid and domestic welfare programs.
Fox's Stephanie Bennett. America is listening to Fox News.
It's Reveille. A recent Wall Street Journal editorial lauded Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds for her fiscal discipline, reporting that Cato Institute's most recent fiscal report card on America's governors gave Mrs. Reynolds another A grade and noted, Reynolds has been a lean budgeter. Iowa general fund spending has grown at just 2.3% annually since she entered office in 2017. The Cato report gave Pritzker a C, noting his increase in taxes by $2.7 billion in 2019, subsequent tax increases in other years, and crony subsidies to businesses like Chinese company Goshen. The Cato report grades governors on both taxing and spending decisions. Those who restrained taxes and spending received higher grades. With his budgets up over 32% in just 6 years, Pritzker's C rank is surprising. They must have been grading on a curve. Let's face it, the key to controlling taxes is controlling spending. And in Illinois, legislators vote blind on the budget every year. After last summer's record budget passed, before DOGE was a household name, we realized lawmakers can't rein in spending unless they know exactly where the money is going before the vote. Budget bills, though, are thousands of pages long with no table of contents, inconsistent categories, and grants to the same organizations scattered across multiple lines. Inspired by pioneers like Adam Andrzejewski and Open the Books, we started cataloging and analyzing the various grants, making the data public, and telling the stories behind the spending. In doing so, we hope to spark a conversation in Springfield, one where the budget is transparent enough that legislators and the public can see and debate where each dollar is headed. Check out our DogeIL.com webpage and contribute your own information about questionable, unnecessary spending at the state and local level through our tip line. I'm Jeannie Ives. Check out The Real Story with me Sunday nights from 7 to 9 p.m. and sign up for my newsletter at breakthrough-ideas.com.
I had the worst dream last night. You were in a car crash and the kids and I were on our own. We had to move out of the house because I couldn't afford it anymore.
That's awful, hon.
My brother got life insurance from Ethos and it only took 10 minutes. And he got $2 million in coverage for around $2 a day. It's all online. No medical exam. He just answered a few health questions right from his house.
Ethos, here we come.
Visit ethos.com/today. Ethos.com/today.
Sample rate is a 10-year term life policy for 35-year-old healthy, non-smoking male. Billed monthly.
It's tax season. By now, we're all a bit tired of numbers, but here's one you need to hear. $16.5 billion. That's how much money in refunds the IRS flagged for possible identity fraud last year. Now, here's a good number, $100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity's stolen, they'll fix it guaranteed. Save up to 40% in your first year with promo code CLAY. Visit LifeLock.com. That's LifeLock.com, promo code CLAY. Terms apply.
The following advertisement includes a celebrity impersonation.
You know, nothing beats the comfort of a perfectly heated home.
And when it comes to heating your home, Air Right Heating and Cooling does it the best.
And they love our country. Beautiful people.
Air Right Heating and Cooling is fast. When your furnace breaks down, they'll fix it right away.
Just like that. Big time results. No waiting around. You get the job done right. And let's face it, who doesn't love being warm, right? It's beautiful. When it's freezing, I crank up that amazing furnace. Burn, baby, burn. Trust me, you'll say, wow, I've never felt this warm in my life.
If you like keeping your hard-earned money, then contact Air Right Heating and Cooling and tell them AM 560 sent you to receive $56 off any service.
Unbelievable.
Visit Air Right Heating and Cooling today at AIR-RITE.com. Again, that's AIR-RITE.com. Air Right Heating and Cooling. Doing it right since 1959.
AM 560, The Answer. We now return to The Real Story Here's your host, Jeannie Ives.
Well, I am traveling, so I put George in charge of this segment. It's the Edgar County Watchdogs. They always have great stories. I know it's not necessarily in keeping with our Easter theme, but it's always good to hear from them and find out what's been going on around the state.
And I am here with the Edgar County Watchdogs, Kirk Allen and John Kraft. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
As usual, we're going to talk about various malfeasance and corruption in Illinois, but in the spirit of Easter, we've also got stories about citizens rising up to change their local governments. We start, though, with a story which connects back to last week's show, where we were talking about the Deerfield, Illinois board public comments regarding boys and girls locker rooms. And we had a caller complain about limits that were placed on who could speak and for how long at that meeting. Welcome, John. You followed up on that, right? Because of course you did.
Yes, thanks for having us. This has nothing to do with the subject of the conversation. This has everything to do with the Open Meetings Act and the public's right to speak. I watched that meeting and I pulled up the board's policy on public comment, and I pulled up the Open Meetings Act, the portion that gives the public the right to speak. And it's clear during the meeting that the board chairman or president, whatever you want to call her, violated their own policy and, by extension, the Open Meetings Act. Their policy requires that people identify themselves and that comments be limited to 3 minutes. There is a section in there that says that presidents can decide to shorten public comment to conserve time to give more people the opportunity to speak, but I don't think that that portion of their policy complies with the Open Meetings Act.
And by identify themselves, you mean just their name, right?
Yeah, hi, I'm Jim Bob, I want to speak. What she was requiring was that they tell her where they lived, either a resident of the district or not a resident of the district. And that in itself violates their own policy. And then she turned around and segregated the speakers. So anybody that was a resident was permitted to speak first. And then the non-residents had to wait to the end. That violates the policy because that's not in their policy. And number two, violates the Open Meetings Act, according to several opinions from the Attorney General. The Open Meetings Act says any person shall be permitted an opportunity to address public officials under the rules established and recorded by the public body. That doesn't mean they can establish and record arbitrary rules or rules that don't comply with the public comment policy. Any rules have to enhance the public's right to speak.
Any person shall be permitted.
Right.
Isn't really ambiguous, is it?
Yeah. And back in 2014, we filed a complaint against the Vermilion County Board for doing this exact same thing. And in the AG's conclusion that they violated the Open Meetings Act, they said there is no justification for basing the opportunity to address the board solely on the speaker's residency, which is what she did. And that the PAC concludes the board violated the Open Meetings Act by imposing an arbitrary and extemporaneous rule affording Vermilion County residents precedence in addressing the board during the November 12, 2013 meeting. So it's clear that the Open Meetings Act does not permit, even if they have a rule that says that rule is invalid because it does not enhance the public's right to speak.
Well, yeah, they can't supersede state law.
Yeah. So any rules have to enhance the public's right to speak. Restricting them does not. And granting the chairman the authority to reduce time from 3 minutes to 2 minutes, I don't believe is proper. I think at a minimum, it should require a board vote to reduce the time, simply because that is listed in their policy. I don't think the AG would agree with that.
A lot of the comments they got from their preferred stock seemed to start with a sort of rehearsed, pomp and circumstance. And one lady even came up to read a comment from some other person. The cynic in me thinks that the likely purpose for limiting comments from outside their area is to sort of fill the available time, get the people up there who they know, and limit overall criticism.
Right. And, to me, it doesn't matter what the subject of the speech was.
You got to follow the rules.
You have to follow the rules, period. And that's the bottom line. And I hope somebody files a complaint or maybe a lawsuit would bring them into line.
This is a hot button enough issue that someone is probably likely to do that, or at least more likely than over, say, a budgetary measure or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And, at least they're not doing what Springfield does.
Well, John, Springfield does a lot of things. You're going to have to narrow that down.
I'm talking the city of Springfield.
Okay.
And we can segue to that right now. The city of Springfield was moving camera angles when certain people spoke, so the viewing public couldn't see what was written on their shirt, and they couldn't see the QR code. So they demand that they pre-approve anything written on your shirt or hat, or a sign that you're going to hold up during your public comment. That's no different than trying to pre-approve the speech you're going to say, because that is speech. A shirt is speech.
Yeah, also not in the rules.
Correct. Now, I requested information from them, and they're playing games. I asked for the name of the person, a copy of the name of the person responsible for the cameras, turning the microphones on and off, changing the camera angles and zooms, and they responded with they have no documents.
So they say you didn't request a specific document, trying to hang it up on a technicality.
They say I didn't request a document, but I did request a document. I requested a copy of the name of the person that's responsible.
Okay, so write it down and give it over, you schmucks.
No, that would be creating a new document if they had to write it down or if they had to type it out.
All right, fair enough. But that role must be notated somewhere.
I know that. And somebody was sent a text or an email saying, hey, shut the camera off when this person comes up to speak. But even if none of that was in writing, somewhere in the city, the name of that person is down on the document, either in payroll for IT services, payroll, board secretary, who knows? But they just need to provide any document with that person's name on it. I didn't ask for a document that included that person's name and also includes, their duty to cut off the microphone. I didn't ask for that.
Yeah, and a municipality, even one sort of sizable like Springfield, is not going to have a bunch of people running their audiovisual media stuff. You're just going to have one or maybe two people setting that stuff up and running it.
And then when they censured a person, which they don't have the right to do, and cut the mic off when that person goes up to speak, somebody was told to shut the microphone and the cameras off when that person steps up to speak. They don't just dream it up out of their head, wake up in the morning and say, hey, when Sally comes up to speak, I'm going to cut her microphone off for no reason. No, they were told.
Yeah, you'd have to think so.
And the name of that person is in some document, even if it's on a payroll document. They can redact everything else except for that person's name and provide that document.
All right. Well, thank you, John. We're going to pause there and come back to some actual good news in Illinois politics. Stay right there. This is The Real Story, with or without Jeannie Ives.
The American military brings together brave men and women from across the country who have chosen to answer the call when their country needs them most. At aviatorfuel.com, we know the military because we live the military life. With books written by a Navy pilot and run by a hard-working military spouse, aviatorfuel.com is proud of our service and our country. That's why we never compromise on authenticity. Our cocktail books are modeled off the real Army, Navy, and Marine pilot checklists that military aviators have used for decades. But instead of a procedure on how to handle an engine fire, you'll find the procedure for how to make a mojito. From classic recipes to military specials like the Queen of Battle or the Afterburner, our cocktail books have something special for every veteran. So go to aviatorfuel.com and get ready to raise a glass to the brave men and women who serve our country. That's aviatorfuel.com.
Don't miss this once-in-a-lifetime adventure. Set sail August 16th through the 23rd on the Patriots Alaska Cruise with me, Larry Elder, Mike Gallagher, plus special guests Jennifer Horn and Joe Piscopo. Experience breathtaking glaciers, fjords, and wildlife, all while diving into critical discussions about America's future with today's top political voices. Cabins are going fast. Text TRAVEL to 94878 right now to secure your spot before it's too late. Travel to 94878 right now to secure your spot before it's too late.
Your business is under attack 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's a fact. Small businesses are the low-hanging fruit. You may think you're protected, but you're vulnerable in many ways, and cyber attackers actively prey on small businesses. But Turnkey can protect you. Turnkey is the key to cyber protection. Turnkey has a quick and efficient 12-point evaluation to determine if your business, your profits, are at risk. And right now, for a limited time, Turnkey is offering the first month of service to all new customers free. Peace of mind, free. It includes all Microsoft licensing, antivirus, anti-malware, and completed data backup both on-site and off-site, plus help desk support. Don't leave you, your employees, and your customers vulnerable. Talk to Turnkey. Visit turnkey.pro. 3 decades of experience. That's turnkey.pro. Turnkey, the champion of small business.
Hey, heard you're getting ready to move.
We just listed our house on the market.
Just make sure you have the right attorney.
Doesn't the real estate agent take care of all that?
They stay involved, but you want to make sure you have a great lawyer that's negotiating the terms, helping resolve inspection items, clearing up title issues, preparing the deed and other documents, and attending the closing.
The attorneys at Nauman & Associates in Elk Grove Village have decades of experience handling real estate transactions every day all over Chicagoland. NALawGroup.com.
AM 560, The Answer. You're listening to The Real Story with your host, Jeannie Ives.
And welcome back to The Real Story without Jeannie Ives at the moment, but we're back with the Edgar County Watchdogs, specifically Kirk Allen now, who has some, believe it or not, honest-to-goodness positive news for once coming out of Illinois on the local elections front. Hello, Kirk. What do you got?
Yeah, thanks for having us, George. Appreciate it. Yeah, we finally do have some good news out of some reporting we did on several communities. We'll start out with Rochester, Illinois. That mayor down there has just been a tyrant, got the city involved in several lawsuits, or at least one big lawsuit over liquor licenses, cost him a small fortune in legal bills, and I think it was $170,000 settlement. The courts eviscerated him. And long story short, he got tossed at the election. He got a whopping 19% of the vote, 19.4.
Good.
So it's good riddance to the old mayor of Rochester. So they've got some new blood in there that I think is going to be a positive for the community.
How big of a town is Rochester?
If I recall, they're just over 5,000, maybe 6,000, but I'm not 100% positive.
And so that $170,000 settlement comes out of the mayor's pockets or comes from the town?
From the town. That comes out of their general fund.
That's an absurd amount of money to screw 6,000 people out of.
That's part of why he got tossed, and is what we're hearing. People were just irate over it.
Well, that's good. You've got other news from Rochester as well, yeah?
Yeah, the Rochester Fire Protection District, one of the great trustees, Marty Fairchild, has been fighting the corruption in that organization for quite a while. And they put together a slate of people that, boy, they're going to throw him out of office. And it didn't work. It actually backfired. He was the largest vote getter. So I think the public has recognized, there are some good people that need their support. And he's still fighting the fight. He doesn't have the majority, to turn a lot of things around. But that little fire department is sitting on well over $1 million in money, and they continue to raise everybody's taxes every single year. And that became a big contention in this last election. And, to Marty's credit, he was one of the only trustees that always voted no on that tax increase. So he's been reelected.
Let's hope some others of the same ilk can join him there.
Yeah. Hopefully here in this it'd be a 2-year cycle to have others on the ballot. And I think there's a nice turnaround that we should see out of Rochester.
Well, hopefully he keeps fighting and gets support throughout that time.
Yeah, well, it's not going to be pretty, that's for sure, but we're going to keep exposing the garbage that they're doing. In fact, that fire department, I think they approved the planting of like $15,000 worth of trees at their last meeting.
Trees?
Yeah, trees.
They're adding flammable material, Kirk. Is this a matter of job security?
No, they're actually trying to plant some trees because their long-term goal is to build this fire training facility, and they want the trees to grow up to block the view from the citizens.
Okay.
So this was their precursor to try to hide it, if you will.
Build the wall.
Yep. Well, moving further south down the village of Yale, a little town of 200 in the middle of nowhere in south central Illinois, we had uncovered the family operation of that board. It was virtually every position basically was held by a family member, and some of them were paying themselves.
Oh, no, it's like Blazing Saddles. Everybody's a Johnson.
Yep. Well, once they got exposed for what they were doing, they all bailed. None of them ran for re-election. So the entire village of Yale, every elected position has a new person in it this cycle.
That's awesome.
It's positive. It is awesome. The negative side is it's a steep learning curve when you have nobody there that knows anything about how to do things. So they've got a big learning curve ahead of them on that.
Well, it's sort of an eternal truth, right? Governing is often harder than winning elections. And
right.
I think we saw a version of that with Trump's first term where, they said themselves they weren't those people, right? They didn't know exactly how the system was going to work against them and stifle their efforts. But now they're working with those learned lessons. All right, you're following another story featuring what appears to be a character out of the FX show Justified. This lady was a mayor, tried to silence opponents and critics, and now she was hiding a stolen vehicle. What is going on in Nason?
Yeah, the Nason mayor, Michelle McKinney. This is a gal that, as mayor, I think John can chime in here. I believe she tried to issue or was going to issue John a fine for speaking at a meeting. You never got that fine, did you, John?
No, she said she's going to give me a $150 fine, but that didn't work out too good.
But she did find some locals there. In fact, one of them was her opponent in the mayoral race.
Oh, really?
She also filed a defamation lawsuit against her opponent, which I noticed today on one of her cases, her attorney has withdrawn, which might have, been tied to what's happened here recently. A couple days ago, she ended up on the receiving end of those stainless steel bracelets, better known as handcuffs. And they didn't just cuff her. They put a muzzle on her, which tells me she was either biting or spitting. That's usually why they muzzle them. But she got the trifecta. She was cuffed, muzzled, and stuffed.
So she got the full Hannibal Lecter, huh?
Yep. Great mugshot on the last article. From what I understand, there are at least 6 officers down there effectuating this arrest, and she was in possession of a stolen vehicle. My understanding from the locals, it was a vehicle that was her father's that she took from the estate, and I guess her sister or some other family member, reported it stolen, and then she tried, or her fiance supposedly tried to hide it. So they popped her for possession of a stolen vehicle and obstruction of justice. So we're awaiting the preliminary hearing that she's supposed to have, and she lost her election, which is great. I was confident she would, but she was using lawfare, just like we see with what's happening in our national stuff. They try to do stuff in court. She files lawsuits and order protections and tries to issue fines to anybody that disrupts her meeting. And she's not only out, but she's also facing some criminal justice. Both charges were, according to what the sheriff put out, both were felony crimes.
Yeah, those are real charges. That's not a slap on the wrist, usually.
Right.
So is she a native to Nason, or was that Jefferson County?
No, she's a transplant from Chicago. She moved down there. My understanding, she's been there a little over a couple of years. She ran for mayor and got 3 votes, is what I was told. Nobody ran, but she did, and she got 3 votes total. And she ran for re-election, and it didn't work out real well for her. The public finally stood up and said, "No, we're not gonna play this game."
Well, it's good to know that if every other business in Chicago fails, we'll still be able to export crime and wannabe mobsters the Chicago way, right? And get in there and use your position to bully people around.
And that's exactly what she did in Nason. She came down there and she became the queen of the town and bullied everybody. And now she's on the receiving end of it. So we'll see how it worked out for her.
See, Kirk, instead of the stolen car, she should have had the 30-foot Cadillac like Boss Hogg. She might have even been able to pull off the same suit. All right, gentlemen, have a great rest of your Easter. We appreciate you being here, as always, and keep up the excellent work.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you having us.
Support these guys and find out what they're doing at IllinoisLeaks.com. They are John Kraft and Kirk Allen, the Edgar County Watchdogs. This is The Real Story, soon to be with Jeannie Ives again. Back in a moment.
Spring. A time to get outside, be active, play with the grandkids, enjoy life. But if high blood pressure is holding you back, the sooner you get control of it, the sooner you'll stop being a walking time bomb. High blood pressure is a serious issue. Your blood vessels are constricted, your mortality risk is high. So what can you do besides take medications with side effects? Well, there's a delicious juice that can help bring your numbers back down. It's called 120 Life, and it has natural ingredients that have shown to lower blood pressure. Yes, a superfood juice is showing amazing results for high blood pressure without the side effects of big pharma medication. Try 120 Life risk-free now with a 2-week trial pack. Go to 120life.com and use coupon code 560 to save 15% and get free shipping. They're so sure it can lower your blood pressure in 2 weeks, they'll give your money back if you're not satisfied. Order now. That's 120life.com. Use coupon code 560 at checkout for 15% off.
Can you afford not to have effective video surveillance? Is your outdoor inventory at risk? Theft and vandalism can hit your bottom line hard. Stop these events before they happen. Monitor your business 24/7 with alarm detection systems. We prevent crime with live operators watching video alerts, ensuring your assets and employees are secure. It's not worth the liability when you can effectively protect what matters most. Call ADS at 1-630-844-6322 or visit adsalarm.com for a free demo. Alarm license number 127000143. Spending too much on security guards to patrol your property? With rising crime rates, guards may not be enough. And the cost, it's adding up fast. At Alarm Detection Systems, we offer a more innovative solution. Live video monitoring. Cameras provide extra coverage in even the hardest to reach areas. Unlike guards, they never get intimidated. Our operators watch video alerts in real time, cut costs, increase coverage, and stay secure. Call ADS at 1-630-844-6322 or visit adsalarm.com for a free demo. Alarm license number 127000143.
AM 560, The Answer. The Real Story with Jeannie Ives continues on AM 560, The Answer.
Again, thanks for joining me on The Real Story tonight. I really appreciate my listeners. Please share our content. Go to my website, sign up for my newsletter at breakthrough-ideas.com. Hope everybody had a wonderful Easter tonight, and we will see you next week.
And if we live our lives and dedicate our country to truth, to love, and to God, we will be a part of something much stronger and much more enduring than any negative power here on earth. That's why this weekend is a celebration and why there is hope for us all. Thanks for listening, and God bless you.
Our local hospitals are the heartbeat of our communities, delivering critical care every hour of every day for everyone, training the next generation of caregivers. Beyond the walls, their benefit to the community is everywhere, driving the local economy and supporting local organizations, initiatives, and neighbors. Illinois Hospitals, healing communities. Learn more at team-iha.org. Sponsored by the Illinois